Hello, and welcome to another episode of Benchmark BITESIZE. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how consistent cost modeling improves your business valuation. This episode is really targeted at the senior commercial professionals within our industry. Anyone that is considering making a change or assessing the need for a new and different commercial approach within their business if you're not overly satisfied with the one that you've got today. So obviously, when you're looking to choose a new commercial excellence package and a new estimating and pricing tool, normally the common drivers for a tool change because, let's be honest, these are not small projects and can be a little bit disruptive within the business. The main driver is normally a very practical one, which is we need a new system within the business. We need to be able to price more consistently and take more control and protect the margins and really drive a level of sophistication in the commercial excellence program. One of the lesser points which is really discussed is how it improves your business valuation. So myself and the founders of Benchmark really started the journey to solve a very practical problem, just really the ones that the senior commercial leaders might be considering today, looking at a new commercial solution, which is really my dad, as an ex-professional packaging buyer, was looking to work collaboratively with his suppliers to find those mutually beneficial cost savings that he could really drive, best practice price and best practice commercial approach with him and his suppliers. For myself, as an ex-professional sales director myself, I was looking to be able to work with the large, complex key account tenders we've all come to know and love, and win more successfully. And as the business has evolved over the years, of course, we've got a very nice, very efficient daily estimating tool. And obviously, we've still retained that original functionality of being able to work with and quote on large, complex key account tenders in a very, very efficient way. So as our journey has evolved over the last 13 years, we've been involved in a variety of fascinating projects. So these range from site installations, where really we install our system at our customers' sites, through to asset acquisitions, where we're approached and we're asked, if we were to buy a new asset, a new printing press, which one would be appropriate for the market that we want to approach and the target margins we'd like to achieve. And then more relevant to today are the merger and acquisition projects, where we can represent a new potential business within the tool, and we can look to see where those synergies lie, once we've got access to that level of data, before the final decision is made to potentially acquire that new business. And it's really that last project and that last topic that I want to discuss in more detail today. So it's come as a big surprise to us, when we have been in front of these potential investors and we've spoken to our clients who have to work with the potential investors when there is an M&A activity running within the business. It's quite interesting that there's a standard set of questions that tends to be thrown up. So this is, do you have a consistent ERP system that runs throughout the business? Is there a shop floor data capture solution? And are there the associated KPIs that follow that to make sure that operational performance is being best managed? And then, most importantly for us, and really the topic of our conversation today, is how is the sales pipeline managed? And is there a consistent commercial pricing strategy across the group? So to understand why this is important and why they're asking these questions, of course, it is, as investors, they don't know your business and they will be approaching you today with hopefully a reasonable amount of knowledge of your business, but really not in-depth knowledge of the inner workings of the business. And they're asking these questions quite obviously because they want to mitigate their risk going into an investment situation. So really, I started reflecting, why is this important to them and what are they looking to understand? And if I reflect that back on my journey over the last 13 years and think, well, what are the different things that I've seen over the years, the different cost models that have been in place before Benchmark has then been rolled out and installed at the various sites that we now operate? And what are the different things? And actually, if I reflect back on my journey, I can really see why this is an important point for investors, because sometimes you have pretty good cost models and they do turn out an accurate price and your business is protected for its margin and everything else. In other instances, unfortunately, it's not quite as good. So there's some key watch outs here that I'd like to pass on to you. And hopefully this will help you assess your own cost estimating solution within your business. So the things I've observed over the years, they're not secure, particularly if it's an Excel-based solution. Costing model needs to have a lot of private company data stored within it in order to be able to calculate an accurate price. Obviously, if this is in Excel, that can be copied and taken outside the business. So from a governance perspective, for sure, not ideal. Maintenance as well. They're not often updated annually in line with the budget process. And also things like the raw material costs and other costs that reside within the cost model as well. They're not routinely updated either. In some instances, in the worst instances, sometimes these cost models are not supported anymore. So they might have been developed by somebody that no longer works for the business or a software company that no longer exists, which of course is a big issue for a business and continuity. Your businesses will always be evolving, and if you don't have a good partner to evolve with you, then that does prove quite challenging at times. Duplicate copies. So particularly this is a case with Excel. If there are multiple sites using the same Excel spreadsheet, you end up with multiple copies, and then over many years you end up with subtle differences within each of them, and that version control becomes very, very difficult to manage. There's no governance or approvals procedure. So with Excel, it tends to be the case that the local commercial manager is more or less making the commercial decision himself on a day-by-day basis. So there's no approvals and escalation, and may not be able to calculate large-scale tenders accurately and efficiently. These large-scale tenders has been a particular challenge that we've been working on for many years. It could be very easy to get completely lost in a large-scale tender and be completely absorbed with the administration of a large tender, that it leaves you no time at the end to be strategic and really think about how to be creative commercially and drive your best offer to that potential key account customer. It may not accurately represent your P&L down to an EBIT level. Again, one of the things that we see quite commonly is that obviously you'll have a P&L contribution margin scheme running in your business, and it'll be pretty well defined for a finance side, for a controlling side of your business. But when it comes to pricing, oftentimes there are nuances and little differences between the sites that actually, if you look at contribution margin, Deckungsbeitrag, something like this, these things can be subtly different between the sites, which means benchmarking and looking for the most profitable solution within your business can be very, very difficult because you're not looking at comparable data. And then really finally is that they've never been independently audited. So if they have been developed by a colleague, or again, as we said, even worse, somebody that's left the business, has anybody really gone into every formula on that Excel spreadsheet and checked that it's doing what you would expect it to do and it correctly represents the business? As you would imagine, with over 100 site installs in the benchmark system, with every site install, we are checking every formula within our system, making sure it's correctly represented at our customer system. And it really brings us beyond reproach in terms of any concerns that there might be with the numbers that come out of the benchmark system. Ultimately, what this often leads to with a poor estimating system is a lack of trust from the sales team. Now, the issue with this, of course, is that sales team will continue quoting their customers. There's a daily business that needs to be managed, and sales guys will need to be able to quote their customers. In the end, if the pricing tool doesn't represent reality and doesn't give the sales guy the prices that he needs in order to win, then the sales guy is going to be less inclined to follow the pricing model and more inclined to follow the market price, which is remarkably dangerous to do, of course. Sometimes that will be okay if you've got a well-performing business that manages its inbound cost of goods very well. In other instances, that can run you into a lot of trouble. And we've seen both examples over the years. So you can see that the system is running over my shoulder here, and I'm just going to show you what the benchmark system does to solve some of these issues. And again, hopefully goes some way to highlight why a potential investor would hold a lot of value really in having a good state-of-the-art cost estimating solution within your business. So first of all, I want to highlight the fact that you need one central system. So this homepage here, you can see there are multiple sites that are represented here. I know they have country names here today for the example that we're talking about, but really these are different production locations that could be really anywhere in the world. So second of which, we then get to the granularity of data. So I'm going to show you one of the machines in the system. I'm really not going to go into a lot of detail, but one of the important things is, does it represent the reality within your business? So a simple example of this is when we go to a printer, a flexo printer in the packaging industry. Obviously, you can work to simple average speeds. What you can see here is a really nice example where order quantity is driving speed on the machine. So you can see here, for the smaller order quantities, the machine's running slower. And then as we get up to the higher order quantities, we reach the machine's optimal speed, which in this case is 300 meters a minute. Now, it goes without saying, any packaging professional in our industry will understand that, these really small 5, 4, 3,000 square meter order quantities that we take on from our customers, it doesn't allow our big machinery in our industry really to get up to speed, which is fine. And, we all accept that we have to take these orders on from time to time. I think the key is, from a pricing perspective, is making sure that you're quoting accurately when you're quoting for these small order quantities. The risk here, of course, is if you do take averages, which is, often what we see, is that it's okay taking an average. That's if you win all of the business in the portfolio that you're quoting. If you don't, the issue is you run the risk of being allocated, a weighted proportion of business to the smaller order quantities where potentially you're not going to be making as much money. And then that average margin that you've calculated will be missed entirely. So making sure that every price that you quote, and I know sometimes there's hundreds, if not thousands, in a large complex tender, each one of them needs to be able to stand up by themselves. And okay, I know there's a strategic picture over the top of that as well, but depending on how that business is allocated, each individual price needs to be able to stand up. And that goes the same for the running waste, the non-conformance waste that you can see. Maybe not such a relevant example with modern printing presses, but thickness could drive running waste. So as the thickness increases, so the non-conformance waste increases here as well. Then you have the machine setup waste and the machine setup time. And again, I'm not going to go through all of these different settings and things that are on the system, but just goes to show you that there's a huge amount of settings and accuracy that the benchmark system goes to. The system goes to in order to make sure that every price that comes out the system is wholly accurate. So that's the first thing about accuracy of data and the flexibility within the system to make sure it's correct. Now, the next part, which is to do with the commercial excellence journey, really, which is to say, right, now we've got our data correct and perfect within the system. And after the installation process, the benchmark system will fully represent your business with every different connotation of the different specifications and order quantities that might run through your business. And that includes all the costs for the material and consumable items. We then look at the next stage of the process, which is a sales guy will go to a customer and he'll receive an inquiry. So we have an inquiry system. This is where the sales guy can then go on to the inquiries page. He can raise an inquiry. And if I show you an example of a typical inquiry, a sales guy could fill out as much or as little of this page, this inquiry page, as he or she needs to. And then once they're done, they can save the inquiry. This inquiry will then go in the workflow process through to the commercial estimator, that then they'll complete the details, put the appropriate machines in, for example, or, any of those specific technical details that maybe the sales guy wouldn't know directly on the day, can be completed then by the commercial manager. So now we've got an inquiry. That inquiry is being turned into an estimate. And if I show you the estimate on the system here, you've got the variety of quantities that you can see across the top. And then you've got the different units of measure that the system works to. And then all of the other details are populated. And then finally, of course, we end up with our cost. So in this case, for this simple polyester PE laminate that we're looking at here, we've got across the range of quantities anywhere between a cost of 32 pence per square meter all the way down to 16 pence per square meter for the largest order quantity. Okay. So as you can see here, what we've got is a number of red boxes. So what we have in the benchmark system as well is target margin setting, which can be set at a central level by the senior commercial teams or the product manager specialists. What you're able to do within the product name section is, with each product name, you can actually set target margins. So you can raise as many of these as you wish. Here's an example that says reseal bag. And when we raise an inquiry, and then that goes on to an estimate, of course, we will be referencing that in the product name section. So when we select reseal bag in this particular estimate, what it will do is it will pull through the target margin. Now, in this case, there are two targets, one against CM0 percentage and one against CM2 percentage. Okay, so this is more or less your direct costs or margin over raw material, I've heard it called, or Deckungsbeitrag is somewhere CM1, CM2, I guess. So what you're then able to do as the commercial manager is say, okay, so I've just raised this estimate and, well, based on the target margin for this particular product, well, we're way below. So let's go with CM0 percentage. And what we can see here is anywhere between 46 to 16%, that's not going to hit the target. So if I hover my mouse here, we can see that actually the target is 50. So if we put 50 in fact, let's just go slightly over. And we'll go 55, in fact. And what you'll see when I update the calculations, you'll see the CM0 percentage is then updated, and all of those red boxes have now turned green. And that's because, of course, we're over our target margin. But the really interesting thing is here, you can see if I set my CM0 percentage at 55% in this case, what effect will that have on the rest of my contribution margin scheme? Of course, in the benchmark system, you can also set the price, and that will then back calculate the contribution margin scheme as well. But the important thing is, once this estimate is raised and created, and the commercial manager is happy with the margins that have been set, in the benchmark system, there is an approval and escalation process. So there is all of these different estimate statuses. So it goes from initially approved. So I might be an approver that doesn't have the full approval to approve an estimate, which is in this case 16,000 British pounds. That might be above my approval limit, but I am allowed to initially approve. Once it's been approved, the status of the estimate goes to, well, you can already see this here, approved awaiting feedback. So the idea here is that hopefully the sales guy will go to the customer, have a negotiation, and then we will come to an agreement, and let's hope that then we get we win the business. If we win the business, of course, we can move that to the won status, and then finally the order received status. Second to that, if the business is lost, we could choose the lost status. And then what we can also do with that is we can put the market data inside as well. So if this estimate is lost, what we're able to do for each of those order quantities is put the feedback from the customer. So if 55, I think, was the margin that we were looking at there, and it was 32 down to 16. So let's say the customer wanted 0.25 across the board. If we haven't achieved that and we did lose the estimate, we can then update this data in the estimate here, and then that will forever be stored with that estimate. So hopefully you can see where this is going. Once we've got hundreds, if not thousands of estimates, and some of them are won, and we have to accept, of course, some of them are going to be lost, where we lose estimates, it's so important that we get that feedback. Obviously there's a hope that in the future we're going to go back and we're going to try again. And for a product manager and a product specialist within the larger groups within the packaging industry, that data is absolutely critical. If we are consistently losing in a product area where we really should be winning, then what we can do is start looking at the price expectation from the market and start designing our business around trying to hit that target. Because really, in a certain way, for a lot of products, you can't argue with market price. That doesn't stand true for all products, of course, if there's a particular USP to do with that product. But this can be really critical data, and it can be accessed at a central point. So for the larger groups with hundreds of salespeople across the group, gathering that data and then collating it centrally so it can be used for some really advanced commercial strategy setting, it can be really game changing, I have to say. Next, the final point which I want to cover today is the estimate history dashboard. So with all of the estimates that have been raised on the system, you can download a dashboard, and you can see for all of the sites within your group, each of the customer names, the different product areas. And obviously you can see as we've downloaded this is in Excel. So anyone that knows and loves Excel, as we do, of course, you will know that this is highly customizable. So, you know, this is just an example report, and you'll be provided this as a standard, of course, just to get you started. But naturally, we can customize these to your own business KPIs as you see fit. So really, hopefully you can see that, you know, if you end up with a commercial excellence program, because this is a little bit more than an estimating tool now that we're 13 years through our journey, you can see that really by having a really good estimating package, it's not only calculating every price that goes out the business in a wholly accurate way to your business performance and cost, it's also representing the target margins and commercial strategy that has been set and agreed at the senior level in the commercial team. But it's also giving you amazing market data in terms of the feedback from the customers if unfortunately we lose an estimate, but also the performance of all the sales guys and the products and the estimates that we're quoting on within the group. And this can all be managed from a central location on a cloud-based solution. There are lots of opportunities to link this system up with other databases, other software packages for analytics or ERP integrations and things like this. But that's very much to do with another video on Benchmark BITESIZE. So hopefully you can see by the end of this that there are a lot of pitfalls and issues with commercial management, commercial strategy setting, and price management, really. And you can understand why the importance of an investor would be to understand what process you're running within your business. Because if this isn't well managed, an investor could walk into a business where there are a lot of unsustainable prices and a lot of issues running within the business, and it might need a lot of work, care, and attention before that business can then really get on a platform for growth and push forward. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll bring it to a close here. And if you do want to get in contact, please go through our inquiry system on our website. We'll be happy to answer any further questions or do a one-to-one demonstration of the system so you could really see how it would work within your business. Thank you very much.